Hello everyone, back for another diving deep into Reddit's r/HSP because the last one was so much fun, and here we go, part 2. Let's get into it. Can't stop ruminating over an insult. Oh boy, I have been there. Oh my gosh, do I even want to read this? Okay. I was at my ex's child's birthday party yesterday. We dated 10 years ago for a couple of years, and I know most of her family members, some better than others. I had already overcommitted myself for the weekend and was feeling overstimulated arriving to the birthday party. Okay, so we're already starting off not great. While I was inside the house for a moment talking to my ex's mother and aunt in English, the ex's uncle comes in. I try to be respectful to family, especially elders, so when he came over to say hello and hug. Okay, again, before we even get into this is kind of something I touched on in the last version of this video. We are so overly concerned with how we are being perceived by others. We need to have as much empathy for ourselves as we have for other people. I think it's more important as HSPs, like a big lesson for HSPs, and this is something I'm working on too, so I'm not, sitting on my high horse here thinking that I've got everything perfect, but I have definitely learned that it's more important. I mean, maybe this is just because I've been through so many things and I feel like I'm at this place in my 30s where I just have no time for BS anymore. And no energy for it, but I've definitely realized that it's so much more important to protect our own energy and protect our own sense of self and our own beliefs about ourselves. And I can already see where this is going, but this person already showed up to this party overstimulated, and before anything has even been said about an insult, they're already kind of prioritizing being polite to these people that are probably about to say something really rude and disrespectful. So let's get further. So when he came over to say hello and hug the ex's mother and aunt, I said hi and went to give a hug and say hello since he had just hugged them. I said hi in English because we all had just been talking in English, and he said, "No Spanish, loser," as if he was telling a funny joke. I was really offended though. I could have said hello, how are you in Spanish, but I had been in the middle of a conversation in English with the mom and I'm not a native Spanish speaker. Okay, so there's obviously much more that I could read down here, but I feel like I don't even need to read the rest at this point because the main point here, this is definitely someone just being rude, and I completely agree with this person. This was not called for by any means, and hurtful jokes are not funny. There's never really a place for these types of things. Unless you are a best friend with someone and you enjoy that teasing back and forth relationship, there really is no place for insulting someone as a joke. It's not a joke. It's not funny. You're basically just disguising a disrespectful behavior and brushing it off as something playful and funny. I was so shocked I had nothing to say back to him after I looked to the mom and said I didn't make fun of him for not speaking to me in Armenian, and she smiled and agreed. I was hurt though. It didn't bother me that much until a few hours later, and I couldn't stop fuming about it. Okay, this is also a very common experience for HSPs where you're in a situation like this and you don't say anything back, or you're still kind of processing, did that actually just happen? And then it isn't until later on, few hours, few days, that you think of what it is you wish you would have said. This is something I struggle with too, so I really understand. But I also think that the more that you practice defaulting more often to saying what you need to say and honoring yourself, and less worrying about how the other person's going to perceive you, the easier it is in the moment in these scenarios to say what you need to say. It definitely comes easier when you're more focused on your own integrity, honoring your own self-respect, than how the other person's going to perceive you. Because what this guy said was completely uncalled for. And in that moment, I would say to this HSP, it would be great if, let's say this happened again, if in the moment that this uncle said this stupid thing to him, he could have thought in his mind, well, that's a really crappy reflection of that person's character. Sucks for them that they're that kind of a person. And not that I need to defend myself here, but I can say that that was totally uncalled for statement. And that's it. It's much more reflection on their behavior and their personality than you at all. Clearly, you didn't even, this was so uncalled for. Hey guys, editing Tiara here. I just want to add a thought because you may have just been thinking, well, if I tell them what they said was rude or uncalled for, this might be the moment that someone like this would choose to then say, wow, stop being so sensitive, or you're just too sensitive. In which case, I would probably tell myself in my mind, or say out loud to them if I was feeling confident and ballsy, that it was a bummer or disappointing that they would resort to calling me overly sensitive, rather than own up to and take responsibility for their own disrespectful behavior. Because that's what telling someone they're too sensitive is, resorting to an attempt to insult or blame someone as a way to avoid self-reflection and taking responsibility for how their behavior impacts other people. I will never speak to him again if I see him at another party, though. I get so tired of bullies sensing my vulnerabilities or whatever the heck they sense and then exploiting it. I don't know if it's an HSP thing or my traumas or both that seem to make me a target with some kinds of people, but I hate it. From my own experience, I would say that there is seemingly an energetic thing where people can sense, at least I feel like I have had this experience where I walk around and I feel like people could tell that I was more sensitive or more vulnerable or something. But I think that as we work on cultivating our sense of self-worth and our sense of self and understanding who we are and honoring our sensitivity and honoring our authenticity and who we are and prioritizing our own energy and prioritizing our own boundaries, all of these things naturally build up a healthy confidence and barrier between you and other people that are disrespectful or have bad intentions, so that you are actually putting off a different level of energy that says, you can't affect me. You can't get past a certain place in my bubble that will deeply affect who I am and make me rethink my entire sense of worth. The more we cultivate these inner skills, I think the more we send out a signal that says, I respect myself and I will not let you treat me poorly. And if you do, I am exiting this interaction. And I can speak from experience that the more I've worked on these things within myself, the more I feel like that is my experience going out into the world. Whereas when I was younger and I felt very vulnerable and very open to everybody's energies and very concerned about what other people were perceiving of me and really did not have a very high self-worth at all, I was always that person that would walk around and have people come up to me and pour out their life story. It was like they sensed I didn't have any boundaries. So I think on a personal level and on an energetic level, the more you cultivate these things, the more you actually send out a subliminal signal that says, I am not a good target. Okay, I think I've spent a long time on this one, so let's move on. HSP problem? Question mark. Let's find out. I was at a friend's house today and she talked at me for, I kid you not, 3 hours. Oh my God. It was this stream of consciousness all about her. A lot of stories I've heard before. Okay, I can definitely relate to this. Not much room to get anything in. No pauses to ask what I thought. I felt so drained during and after this. I was thinking this is something one should be paid for. Looking back at our previous conversations, it is sometimes like this, but never so bad. I think people often approach me like this, and I'm wondering if this happens to others. I'd like to have better relationships, but don't know how. Okay, lots to unpack here. This was a friend, right? So this is, let's say, a relationship that this person cares about improving or maintaining. I would recommend in these types of situations to, at some point, interject and say, I'm happy to hear about all of these things that you're sharing with me, and I would like to know what it is you feel like you would like from me during this conversation. Do you feel like you just need to vent? And you want me to listen? Do you want me to offer my advice? Do you want me to share what I feel like I'm relating to in this scenario? Or what is it that you would like from me? And how can I best support you, or something like that? If someone is venting, I think that's a great way to kind of interject and gently call out the fact that they are venting and ask what it is that they feel like they need from you in this scenario. That gives them a moment to pause and reflect on the fact that they're rambling or that they're venting, and actually evaluate for themselves, like, wait a second, what is my intention for this conversation? Do I just really feel like I need to be heard and seen right now? Because sometimes I feel like people might vent and ramble because they have that inner desire to feel seen, and they don't even consciously realize that that's what they're doing and that's what they're seeking. So if they say, yes, I do just really want to feel heard and seen right now, you can respond back with saying something like, yeah, I completely relate. I totally understand where you're at. That must be really difficult. That must be whatever, XYZ. And then you give them what they are seeking from that conversation. And then hopefully from that point, you move on. Or if you want to just really get out of the situation, I think it's totally fine to say, you know what? I've got to get going. It was great catching up, and just leave. I also think it's perfectly fine for you to, in a honest and respectful way, say something like, I'm really glad that you felt comfortable sharing all this with me. And if it's okay with you, I would like to share a little bit about my life right now. Are you open to that? Something along those lines. I think that a lot of these types of situations come down to our perceived ability to assert ourselves. I think that more often than not, honesty and communication are what's needed in relationships where it feels like there is a imbalance or lack of communication. A healthy friendship and relationship should be able to withstand someone saying, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now. I'm not okay with this. Can we do this? Can we talk about this? Is this okay? Can I be honest with you? Those types of things. If you're not able to say that in a relationship or a friendship and have it go well, maybe that's not a relationship or friendship that you really want to be putting your energy into, because there should be a mutual level of respect, mutual understanding of honesty, and that it is a safe place to communicate how you're feeling, what your intentions are, and ask the person what their intentions are. All right, wrapping that one up. So we're gonna go back to the homepage of r/HSP and sort by top and all time and get some really juicy things to wrap up the episode with. I love routine until I'm bored, then I love excitement until I'm overwhelmed. I love routine. Okay, we're gonna get all memes here. Let's try this year. Ooh, okay, hustling isn't natural for me. Absolutely. It's not even natural for human beings. We are operating at a place that's so much higher in productivity expectations and multitasking and all these things, way more than we are biologically evolved to even handle. So it's just saying that right off the bat. I always have to force myself to be an adult. Hustling is exhausting. Finding a job, doing consistently well at work, paying bills, managing my finances, it's not natural. To be fair, it is not natural. We are meant to be living in the woods and living in villages and those types of things. I think that it's good to stop and think about the fact that biologically we are still wired the same way that our ancestors were when they were hunting and gathering, and now we live in these big cities with these skyscrapers and all this technology and cars and 9-to-5 jobs and money and all of these things that are extremely overwhelming for the organism that is the human being. We have not evolved nearly as fast as technology in our modern society. And that's not even talking about the highly sensitive trait. I have to put a lot of effort into all of that. It consumes my life. When I get stressed, I tend to use escapism as a coping mechanism. I get lost in my fantasies. All these adult things, however, require me to stay present. Is anyone else like this? Okay, so the funny thing is, before I get into the last sentence, I was literally just going to say, this is a sign that your life is too much, and it's okay if what the norm is right now is too much for you, because A, it's kind of too much for any human, and B, you are a person with a sensitive nervous system, which makes these things even more overwhelming. And there is no shame in admitting that this does not work for you. You can figure out ways, albeit it will take some time and planning, to move out of this type of lifestyle into something that's much more rural or quiet or slower paced. And there's so much value in working towards doing that. In fact, that's probably something I would recommend for any HSP if you feel this way, is to start really evaluating the areas of your life that are not working for you and move towards what feels good for you, and stop worrying about whether or not it's normal or expected or society, all that crap. Just let that go. This is your one life. Find what feels good for you and move towards that. So this person says, I want to move to a quiet place with a lot of nature and work on my art and writing and then monetize that. The corporate life isn't for me. I want to be a kid in peace. Oh my God, I could not relate to this anymore. There are definitely ways to do this. You just have to work on a plan and be able to slowly implement it and make that transition. So I would recommend probably doing something that you can either save up money in the corporate job that you have right now and make a plan to maybe take a few months off when you transition and move to a quieter place and find a job there, or look for a job that you can take with you into a lower stimulation life. So maybe see if your work has the ability for you to maybe work less hours, work remotely, or try to find a different type of career that would allow you to make this transition so that you can have the kind of life that you want to have. And it is possible. You just have to get creative and resourceful and come up with a plan and make the moves towards the life that you want. And it's okay if it doesn't fit the normal of what is expected in this crazy society that's so chaotic that even a non-HSP human is too much for. Yeah, there are a lot of people in the comments agreeing with this, and I completely understand. And I think that it's okay. It's okay that a lot of us don't feel like we fit into what society expects of us and thinks is normal. And it's completely feasible to be able to design a life that does work for you. You just have to commit to that. You just have to say, this is a non-negotiable for me, and I will figure out how to make moves towards a life that feels more supportive and more authentic to who I am. And on that note, I think we will end this episode of r/HSP, and maybe we'll do it again in the future. Let me know in the comments if you appreciated this, and I'll see you in the next one.